And welcome to the Daily Templar Report with me, your guest presenter, Jim Dowson. How are you all? God bless each and every one of you. And we have a special guest today, Mr. Nick Griffin. Are you there, Mr. Griffin?
I am indeed, yes.
Okay, I shall speak to you in a wee minute. How are each and every one of you? I hope you are doing well. I see some Colette's in. Celtic Cook, he's in. Malcolm Cook, DJ Samuel. I've got to go through. I can't get through everybody because there's too many. Bartley Burker, Wee Mouse, Igwan Eggerstrom, Lady Rotha, Burt Myers, Anthony Perez, Colette Whitney, Lady Rotha. Who else do we see? EMS Rejuvenation, God bless you, sir. Christopher, Philip Milne, back in Scotland. Mr. Johansson, how are you doing? Sean Smiley. Who else have we got? Jonathan Boudin, God bless you and your good lady. All the best to you. Scott Ashton, how are you? Paul Telford, I've seen there. Yep, okay. Look. Oh, wait a minute. Who else? The Scorpion's in again. Why? I've seen Wes Stover, how you doing? James Partridge, Stuart Duncan, Troy Otto, Miss Sherry B, lovely to see you. Kenneth Driver, yeah. I miss Matt Randy Malaspina, good guy him. Who else have I got? Michael McGuffin, Michael, isn't it? Michael, got it right. John Monkton, Andrew Brown, how you doing? And Joseph Taylor, yes. I think I'll crack on. MOA, how you doing? Nice to see you all, and you're all, each and every one of you, welcome. Right, let's start off with a wee bit of scripture, because that's what it's all about. Let's not forget that. So we're in Proverbs 26, and I'm reading at the very end of the chapter, 27 to 28. Whosoever diggeth a pit shall fall therein, and he that rolleth a stone, it will return upon him. A lying tongue hateth those that are affected by it, and a flattering mouth worketh ruin. And that's wonderful words, and amen, as we read that. But I'd say that whosoever diggeth a pit shall fall therein. And that applies to these boys who run Twitter, Mr. Zuckerberg, and all these fellas. They have dug a pit for God's people to fall into, but as history tells us time and time again, the pit that the devil digs, his own people normally fall into it. And I'm praying that that's what's going to happen very shortly. It'll be wonderful. So we know God will add the blessing to this, the public reading of his infallible and inspired, inerrant word. Amen and amen. Right, well, I want to take you to a wee story tonight. Wait a minute, this big, remember that? I dug that out of the wall. I put that over there. Good grief, that's a heavy piece of kit. I always like having the book there. Do you know, on a reprint of this book, The Dude's Vault, I was counting today, because it's got a new bit on it, modernised, fixed typos, and there's a new preface in it. We have already, without even advertising it, we have already sold a third of the reprint. A third of the reprint's gone. We haven't, not even in here yet. It won't be in here for a couple of weeks. Gone already. I don't know. I'll maybe say so. He'd maybe get it if he can later on. Get the Techie Brother. Can you or can you not at some point in the show show them the new cover and all that? It's the same cover, only by a bit on it. Just the new setup of the Templar book.
Possibly.
Okay, because I think it's a page where you can order it anyway, but, we'll see what happens. Okay, today I want to bring you a very interesting story coming out of Ireland. And it's an old tale. And it's very fitting that I am a Ulster Protestant, but I have to defend the Roman Catholic Church for once. Who would have thought that? So I'm having to defend not only the Roman Catholic Church, but the Irish Roman Catholic Church for many generations, sworn enemies of my people. However, there's this big scandal broke about baby homes and, digging up graves and babies being found and all the rest of it. And it's unbelievable the amount of people that's crawling out the woodwork and smashing these nuns who've done their very best in very difficult circumstances. And I don't think people understand the poverty that Great Britain was in and Ireland was in the 1920s, 30s, 40s and 50s. Abject poverty. I remember it. And how things were run back then. Nurses were like stormtroopers. School teachers were like Gestapo bosses. It was a rough, tough time then. There was, people had lived through wars and famine and diseases. People didn't give you a cuddle and say, how you feeling? They told you, get out. When I was in hospital when I was 10, I was telling somebody earlier, Protestant women can't go in, be nuns, so they tend to, used in the old days, became nurses, and they were all lined up with their starched uniforms, and the matron used to examine them every day, make sure there were not a crease in their uniform, and if there was, they went home. I remember being told, out, 6 in the morning, out my bed, and the staff nurses and that would make the bed, in, and that was it. It was not, how are you today, wee boy, how are you? No, it was out, in, quiet. That was the way it was. Schools were the same. You get battered for morning, noon and night, clipped round the ear if you were cheeky or even looked the wrong way at a teacher, you get thumped. That's the way the world was up till very recent times. But nowadays people are using this excuse not just to have a go at the established church. Now, we had this in Scotland with Presbyterian Church in the 1980s. We had the same thing. How vicious and how horrible it was, and how the Presbyterian Church sold babies. They're saying the same thing. The Catholic Church sold babies. Well, how else do you think they kept the places open? Somebody wanted to adopt a child, they paid. That's what paid for the food that the women and the babies ate. Are you stupid or what? But in Scotland, it never really went far because we don't have any big axe to grind with the Presbyterian Church. Protestants tend to walk away and just forget about it. But when Catholics turn against religion, wow, they just spend the rest of their time gouging and biting at their own old church. It's quite incredible. But in Ireland, it's went beyond that. Where they said in Scotland the people running the Presbyterian homes were too harsh and all the rest of it, and food was in short supply and so on and so forth. It was even short supply outside. But in Ireland, they're actually saying at government level that the nuns killed these babies. Actually killed them. Quite incredible. But let me read this. And by the way, even right-wing, so-called right-wing groups, like the Irish National Party and things like that, even they're having a go, but dressed up as a veiled kind of defence, but it's actually a vicious, venomous attack on these institutions and on these poor nuns. Let me just read this. Some 56,000 unmarried mothers and 57,000 children went to hellish mother and baby homes in Ireland. The Commission of Investigations found that 9,000, that's 15% of the children, died between 1922 and 1998. The Commission of Investigations did not lay all the blame at the doors of the church or the state, pointing the finger also at families and fathers who turned their backs on the unmarried pregnant woman. By the way, it wasn't just that, it was a whole community in those days. Quote, "There's no evidence that women were forced to enter mother and baby homes by church or state authorities. Most women had no alternative," the report said. The Irish government will also provide financial recognition to the specific groups identified in the report. A very high mortality rate was known to local and national authorities and were officially recorded. Sinn Féin / IRA President Mary Lou McDonald said, "There was still a slight hope it would bring hope and real accountability, but for many that hope was dashed. Many are deflated and angry by what they read in this report. The overreaching attempt to shift responsibility from state and church has left them shocked and outraged." Mary Lou, I wonder if there's ever going to be accountability for the 4,000 people that you and your cronies butchered north of the border here. I wonder when you're going to be held account for that, dear, including babies of both religions. Continuing, more profoundly, it was an abuse of power, she added. It was the ultimate abuse of authority. It was a brutality inflicted on women and girls and on the poor in particular. The publication of the Commission investigation into mother and baby homes in the Republic of Ireland has prompted calls for a corresponding inquiry into Northern Ireland, where some 7,500 women and girls gave birth in Northern Ireland homes operated by both Catholic and Protestant churches and other religious organisations. There we are. Again, and can you imagine, Mary Lou McDonald runs a party linked to the IRA, who killed men, women and children, and who actually killed more Roman Catholics than the UVF. She has the audacity to feign horror and shock at this thing. Mr. Griffin, can I have your comments on this ridiculous and outrageous story, please?
Yes, indeed, Jim. Which certainly, as you say, is absurd and outrageous. A number of things I've jotted down actually as you've been speaking. I remember, even though obviously my connections with Northern Ireland are much more slender than yours, I do remember there was an occasion during the Troubles where a greenfinch, which was not a bird, but the name given to the female members of the, was it the RUC?
Yeah, UDR, Ulster
Yes.
Defence Regiment.
Of the UDR, and there was a young woman in the UDR wearing a green and called a greenfinch, and she was shot by an IRA gunman. And I remember that there was a fair bit of outrage, even in the soft British press, but I certainly remember it, that there were Sinn Féin, IRA, made themselves notorious by joking that they killed 2 prods with 1 bullet because she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So to have Sinn Féin spokespersons now getting all upset about the deaths of babies 100 years ago doesn't really cut much ice with me.
No.
So there's that. And then I think it's very, very true what you said, Jim, about you have to put it in the context of the times. And I'm sure that those places were brutal and horrible. As a matter of fact, I could be slightly more critical of the Catholic Church or nuns than you can, perhaps, Glenn, because it's not sectarian coming from me. That you won't know this, Jim. That when I was a very young boy, I went to a Catholic school, and my teachers were nuns for about 2 years, because my sister was at a convent school. She was 5 years older than me, and my parents sent me there. And all I can say is that I remember them being horrible. That when I left that school, having been there best part of 2 years, I still couldn't read or write. Although within 6 weeks of going to a Church of England primary school and being given some extra tuition by the very tough old headmistress, I was reading and loved it. So, and my sister was there for some more years, and she absolutely hated them. And again, so they were absolute swines. So I think some of that's probably true, but again, you have got to put it in the times, and especially going back to the 20s and 30s, and consider this, that the English state was still running the workhouse system, and that certainly in the early stages of the workhouse system, when even if a family were put in the workhouse, the husband and wife were split up, and the babies stayed with the mother until they were 2 years old, and then they were taken off the mother and put in a separate ward. And there was huge deaths of those children within the first few months after they were taken away from their mothers. So that was actually breaking up families in England. Worse, in fact, than looking after pregnant mothers who weren't married, when, in this case, after all, generally, it was very, very common for girls to get pregnant before they were married, and the boys promptly married them. In 18th century Britain, it was the norm. Basically, a full of 1 in 3 of in English parish records, 1 in 3 of the baptisms were less than 9 months after the wedding. That's just a fact. It's the way things were. So generally, a decent lad married the girl. So very often, what you've got here is scumbags who get the girl pregnant and walk away. And to my mind, they were the ones who really needed punishing more than the girls, or at least the punishment should be equal. But it's, again, there is this element of the times. If you think back to the 1930s, and there were people dying in very significant numbers in the United States of America from malnutrition, and if you talked about your parents losing siblings to malnutrition in the Great Depression. So that's where it came from. One of the things, Jim, I've been working on just the other day for the new book is a piece based on the writings of Jack London, great American novelist, who in 1902 visited London, and he wrote a fantastic book, an account of it, of his spending time with the real poor in the East End of London, not down and outs like George Orwell did in The Road to Wigan Pier, but just ordinary working class people in the East End, and he called that book People of the Abyss, and it's a shatteringly grim book about the way, and he said, very interesting from a demographic point of view, he said that basically there's no working men in London whose grandparents didn't come from the country, or parents didn't come from the country, because 3 generations under those conditions was enough to wipe out basically any bloodline, because people couldn't survive it. They were so ground down by poverty, by bad conditions and so on, they simply didn't have kids, or their kids were of such poor quality that they simply died, didn't have children. So London, at the turn of the last century, when this was going on, was sucking in young men and women from England, from Scotland, from Wales, and especially from Ireland, of course, and it was literally killing the people who got there. So that's the way things were in those days. I don't know when Dr. Barnardo's in England stopped shipping little kids to Australia.
I think it's the 50s, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Now, some of them did okay, but you bet your life some of them didn't, and some of them ended up in the most horrifically abusive positions. But that wasn't the Catholic Church, that wasn't even the British state. That was the best chance those kids had at the time of having something in life.
Absolutely. No, I think it's easy to judge past things, and the old Catholic nuns had a ferocious reputation. Well, let me tell you also, I want to show you a picture of this, one of these homes that they're saying is a death camp. Seriously, have a wee look at this. Does that look like a death camp to you? Honestly, folks. Show you another one. Look. Do these look like death camps? Squalid, disease-ridden death camps? Come on. You know, but look, we do live in different times. You know, as you said, Nick, my mother and father lost siblings. My dad was 5 years in a sanatorium with rickets and TB and all the rest of it. He survived, thank God. But, you know, they were tough. But I come from a Scottish Presbyterian background, and I think if there was only one thing more ferocious than an Irish nun, was a Scottish matron. That's the way it is. These were difficult, hard times, and people were dying on the streets of Glasgow and Dublin and Liverpool and Manchester. You know, people had to be tough to survive. But nowadays, you know, I went to school, I left school the year that corporal punishment was done away with, and I was telling one of the boys in the office, you know, I went through my second year and I was 13-year-old and I was belted every single day. I actually had to keep the record up near the end of the term because I couldn't let it go. But I was belted every single day, and one of them actually bust my wrist with the strap. But, you know, I was a little tearaway and a tyke, and, you know, I deserved everything I got. And thank goodness they done that. But I was in the boys' brigade, and I'm sure I've got one ear bigger than the other, because every time this officer walked by me, clouted me. And I'd say, what was that for? He says, I'm not sure, but I'm sure you deserve it. And that's the way it was. But this is an attack. This is just an attack on organised the religion of the state, whether it be the Presbyterian Church or the Roman Catholic Church. That's the way these lefties are. But Mary Lou MacDonald representing Sinn Féin. You remember, there's a woman in the Falls Road in the 1970s. She was a widow woman of 10 children. A widow woman in the Falls Road in the Divis Flats of 10 children. Jerry Adams was involved in it. They were all involved in it. That woman was disappeared. We only found her bones a couple of years ago. 10 wee kids screaming for their mammy, and she was dragged out by the hair, mainly because she was a Protestant who'd married a Catholic and lived there. And that just total good old-fashioned raw sectarianism, which of course never happens in Ireland. But they dragged that poor woman out of her house and butchered her, murdered her and buried her on a beach, and we only found her bones a couple of years ago. This is this done by the people that this woman, Mary Lou MacDonald, represents, Sinn Féin. She represents the people who did this. And
of course, she wasn't the only one, was she, Jim? By any means, there was I've forgotten the name of the Catholic lady. Again, a notorious case from quite recently in terms of finding the body, and she was murdered by the IRA because she had the temerity when a teenage British soldier was shot in the street in front of her. She knelt down and she cradled him as he died.
Yeah.
And for that, again, she was a mother of like 6 or 7 children. And for that, she was dragged from her home, tortured and shot, and buried in an unmarked grave.
And let's talk about abortion
25, 30 years by these same people. I was going to say, Jim, this also doesn't mention the giant bloody elephant in the living room, which of course is abortion.
Exactly. This woman, Mary Lou MacDonald, and her sidekick, Michelle O'Neill up here, who's as thick as mince, absolute pair of imbeciles. Mary Lou MacDonald's middle class. You know, a lot of people now who vote for Sinn Féin have the old IRA slogan, Chalky or La, turned into Chalky or La Di Da, because they're all middle class people. They don't know what violence looks like. There's only the working class that have to suffer violence, not them. So they think it's cool. It's Armani terrorism. But this woman, Mary Lou MacDonald, the leader of Sinn Féin / IRA, she, despite saying she hates Britain, she wants rid of Britain, she went cap in hand and begged the British government last year to impose abortion in Northern Ireland, because Northern Ireland has never had a vote on abortion because it's still a very strong evangelical part of the world. And certainly the Presbyterians were immobilised, the Catholics, the remnant of the Catholics, most of them are gone, but the remnant of devout Catholics would have rallied, the evangelicals, the Brethren, the Baptists, the Pentecostals, and we could have smashed the vote. I don't know, but she wasn't taking the risk. She went to Westminster, cap in hand, and begged the Brits to bring in abortion to slaughter Irish babies. Now, she's complaining that 9,000 babies died between, pay attention folks, 1922 and 1998. It's about 100 and something babies a year, 110 or something, 116. She has brought abortion into Ireland, north and south. And she was dancing in the streets of Dublin when they brought abortion in. Dancing on the street like an imbecile. We will lose about 15,000 babies butchered, murdered in their womb, in the mother's womb. 15,000 per year. Per year. So I don't have a calculator here, but if you work out from 1922 to 1998, what's that? 76 years. Multiply 76 by 15,000. It's hundreds of thousands of babies will be destroyed by Mary Lou MacDonald's actions. And she has the audacity the barefaced cheek to attack the Roman Catholic Church because she reckons 9,000, 15% of children dying was far too much. What was the percentage in the slums of Dublin when there was a family to a room? And what was the alternative? Because let's see, it was harsh in those days. If you're an unmarried mother, you were punished. And your parents would throw you out. And your local village and community would reject you, you see? So what was the alternative? If this woman was lying in a shach, as we call it, and giving birth in a shach at the side of the road, it would have been 100% mortality rate, 15% in these circumstances, and in those days, seems perfectly normal to me. But what a cheek that Mary Lou MacDonald would attack the Catholic Church. She's a Marxist. She's not a Catholic. Let's get this thing through people's heads. The IRA have never been, for generations, anything to do with Catholicism. Sinn Féin, for generations, have never had anything to do with Catholicism. They are hardcore Marxists, hell-bent on destroying the Catholic Church. And they've done their best to destroy the Protestants, but we fought back. But that's their goal. That's their agenda. They ain't gave up. They're going to keep doing it until they destroy the Catholic Church, take over all of Ireland, and then they'll turn their attentions to us poor folk again. But we will fight them again, and we will fight them every time. But the good news is, in this country, good, decent Christian Catholics and good, decent Christian Protestants are uniting as one force to stand against the red peril of communism and socialism and Marxists like this. And that's good news, Nick.
It is indeed. Now, having been harsher than you on nuns earlier, Jim, it's only fair for me to offer a softer perspective on this. And obviously, we're talking about 9,000 deaths. It's pretty horrid. You know, given the time scale, it's not as bad as they're presenting it in order to make the church look bad. But here's something which immediately would change the figures, because they're talking about this is not just babies, this is children. Now, why would a child of, say, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 die when they've been taken into care in the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s especially? I'll tell you why. If you're able to look at the death certificates, you will find one word comes up time and time and time again. The disease of poverty, tuberculosis, tuberculosis, tuberculosis. Yep. And once those children had that, which they would have got when their families were some of these will be from families where the fathers died, for instance, and then the mothers had to go in for help. So if you looked at that, and the ones who'd already caught a fatal disease before they even went into those homes, I reckon you half those figures straight away. Then you look at absolutely natural deaths, you know, in the best hospitals in the world, in the best British hospitals, you still get babies who tragically die at birth or shortly afterwards. Stillbirths will show up in that as a death. Nothing possibly to do with the nuns, but all those things will be the case. If you want to demonise something, you can look at the Shropshire Health Board Trust now, and they've got dozens of clearly unnecessary deaths on their hands, but they're nothing to do with the Catholic Church. You know, these things happen in institutions. Some of those institutions that have had someone in charge who was bad, who was corrupt, who was violent or a crook. Some of them, but to attack the institution as a whole, when with figures which are absolutely massaged or taken to present them at the very worst, it is absolutely monstrous. But it's what you expect from communists, which is what Sinn Féin had been for decades and still are today.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And you know, my mother and father both lost siblings to TB. Tuberculosis. It was a rampant killer. Just as well it's know about nowadays, because people have lost their minds over Kung Flu. I don't know what they would do if the TB and folk were dropping like flies. Who knows? But you know what annoyed me though. I'll just see if the brother for the techie brother. We can show him that one, but I was also wanting to show him the new one. You changed the covers today, didn't you, for the old book? Both of them, but you can show them that as well. We'll just show you a couple of wee snippets here because we're against time. But there's the new book that's coming. End of the month, that'll be a pre-order job, but you won't have to wait that long because they'll be in the pipeline. But it's handy with the pre-orders, so he gets the money in to pay for them, which is very handy indeed. So that's that one, and then we'll show you a wee picture of the other ones. But you know, what annoys me, Nick, is this people are so ready to criticise folk, and I even noticed several leaders of so-called Irish national parties, mainly Nietzschean neo-Nazi clowns, they're jumping on the bandwagon. They're saying, oh, we don't agree with Sinn Féin criticising, but... And then they have a full launch into these mother and baby homes. It's absolutely ridiculous, you know. I have actually ran a mother and baby's home. Nobody died, thank goodness. But they don't understand the pressure that these nuns and whatnot were up against. And it's different days. I mean, we're talking here. North Ireland had just broke free of the British in 1922. The country was on its knees. It was completely poverty-stricken, as was everybody else, but they had just fought a revolution. I mean, I think it's so unfair. I think it's so ridiculous, and I think it's scandalous that people would be taking this opportunity to score points and join with the communists to attack the Roman Catholic Church. Listen, I'm an Ulster Protestant. I don't need any more encouragement to attack the Irish Catholic Church. They were our main force of bitterness for many years. When Ireland split, my family lived in the south. They passed a law that a Protestant could not marry a Catholic unless he turned Catholic. There was all sorts of persecution on my people. My family had to leave. My wife's family left with the clothes they stood up in. I don't need any encouragement. I know all about it. But right is right and wrong is wrong. This is a cheap shot at the Catholic Church just to promote their own agenda and to see right. We expect that from communists. Let's be honest, Nick. That's what communists do, isn't it? But to see right-wing people doing this, because here's the thing, and I'm going to shock, if there's anybody in Ireland on this feed now, you're going to be shocked. Every single right-wing party in Ireland, bar none, apart from Sean Nairn, I'm going to repeat it, all right-wing parties in Ireland, except Sean Nairn, are Catholic haters. Because I know these people. I have spoken to them. And because I'm a Northern Protestant, they'll sidle up to me and say, "Oh, Jim, we hate the church, they've done this and that." Because they think I'm going to agree with them. Oh, no. Give me a corrupt Catholic Church any day of the week over a red pearl. It's no ideal, but I'll take it over the commies. I'd rather take a corrupt, abusive, Protestant-hating Catholic Church any day of the week over the communists. There you go. That's it. But I'm telling you, all of these groups are fake. Nearly all of them are Nazis or pro-LGBTQ, but one thing they've all got in common, except Sean Nairn, is they absolutely despise religion, period. Sean Nairn, they're sensible guys. I'm sure they've got problems with the Catholic hierarchy like everybody has, of course, but they love the faith. All these other groups hate the faith, and they don't just hate the Catholic institution, they hate the faith of Christ Jesus. And the boys over there in Sean Nairn are very, very serious people about the faith of their fathers. So I don't know if people realise that, Nick, but that's the fact.
That's the fact of it. Can I just say, Jim, obviously we're pretty much near to winding up now, but a little bit about communism, because it's possible that there's still some people out there who see you talking about communism and so on. They think, well, isn't this a bit passé? That finished in 1991, and really it was gone, before then, and this is a fight from the 1930s, and what's it got to do with today? It's got a great deal to do with today, because in 1991, 1992, when communism collapsed as a state, in effect, religion in the old Soviet bloc, it seemed that it was gone and finished. But the communists in the West didn't go away. They stepped back, they regrouped, they reorganized, they found new things to build their machine on, and they gave up, obviously, on on the working class. The white working class is hopelessly reactionary and patriotic and given to religion and all the rest of it, and they turned themselves, obviously, for a long time, for 20, 30 years, they built themselves on the back of building a coalition of minorities. So in America, in Britain, on blacks who they could make to feel as though they discriminated against and wind up injustices, which did exist to a degree. And then there's all the sexual minorities and all the rest of it. But even there, people still perhaps think that if they think about a communist, they're some crazed, green-haired, bone-to-the-nose feminist or male-ish, screaming about one of those subjects. But something, Jim, I've been looking at today, and I'd like very much to come back on next week, pursuant to the new book, which obviously is about the Great Reset. So I came across some stunning material today about the agenda of the World Economic Forum and the people they're looking to as their ideological mentors. Now, I've been looking at this for months, on and off, between other things, and I've found plenty of stuff, all the material which people who are, many of our viewers, are really in the know and up to speed. They'll have seen all the other stuff I had, but this is absolutely new to me, and it makes it absolutely clear that the ideological heart of this Great Reset thing, although there's a great deal of big corporate capitalist money involved and lots of money to be made out of it, the ideological heart of this thing is pure Marxism, and they know it's pure Marxism. But the only difference, and here's a phrase that we used obviously in the first book, is that whereas the original communists wanted to change the ownership of the means of production, these people want to destroy the means of the production themselves in order to crush our living standards, because we've got to be crushed, otherwise the world is going to boil and the penguins won't get enough to eat and the polar bears will drown. And yes, it's all the green revolution stuff, but at the core of it, this is absolutely hardcore communism. So if people think that when you or I bang on about communism, that we're from something from the Dark Ages, or at least from the last century, no, the fight against communism is not something in the past. The fight against the worst aspects of communism yet are still to come.
Amen. Well, you know me, Mr. Griffin, since the day you've met me, I've been obsessed with communists.
Utterly obsessed.
Utterly. Communists and gays. And it kept me in good stead, let me tell you. Well, I just want to make an announcement before we go. We will show the updated images on the updated images you talking about the book. Yep. Have we showed that one? Yeah, we showed that one. I will show you the old book, this one, the updated version, on Janie's show, because, big treat for you tonight, folks. Maybe not, depends. At 7 o'clock, I am on as a guest on Jada Franson's show, and that is over on YouTube and Purged. Search for the British Freedom Party on YouTube, you'll come up with that. 7 o'clock, that's 20 minutes, 25 minutes from now, we'll be on there. On the YouTube, and then we're going to swap over to the Purged. So I hope you will come with me and join me there on the British Freedom Party Jada Franson show at 7. I hope to see you there then. Well, Mr. Griffin, thank you very much. I can't wait to your next report with this world health stuff and all that. That's very interesting.
World Economic Forum.
When are we going to do it?
World Economic Forum, do it Monday or Tuesday.
Right, Monday or Tuesday, we're going to get Nick on to talk about this stuff, because he comes up with some very interesting stuff, and we need to know this. We need to brace ourselves for this. So that's it. Okay, folks, God bless you. Thank you, Mr. Griffin, for spending the time in the room here. We really appreciate it, and very valuable contribution indeed. Thank you, and we'll see you Monday or Tuesday next week, brother. Excellent. Okay, folks. That's it for today. I'm going to go and brush my hair, so I'm going on the Jada Franson show in 20 minutes. I hope to see you all there. Remember, British Freedom Party on YouTube, and then we'll do a bit of there, a bit of on Purged, and I shall be back with you tomorrow, all well and God willing. So remember, until then, stick close to God. Don't go far wrong. Dus Vault!